What's up, YouTube? I want to get into a very concerning issue that we've seen all in the news, that Israel wants war with Iran. And the first thing about it is this is a situation that just can't happen. Like, Iran is a very, very dangerous location, and it's a tinderbox. And Iran is affiliated with two world powers, Russia and China, in which they are very strong allies. And so the Bush doctrine of preemptive war does not apply to countries like Iran and North Korea, because North Korea is a location that would intimidate China and create a World War III if it was hit. And Iran is a very similar situation. And if Iran is struck, the problem here is that Iran has long-range missile capabilities. They could hit the European allies in Israel and take Israel off the map. And they have this very, very highly motivated army. And they have a lot of very high capabilities. And so if you had a strike, it could become a World War III and become a situation you lose all control. And it would be a very bad move for the United States to engage in a war against Iran, because there would be lots of different fronts in this type of conflict, and occupying Iran already would take at least 700,000 people, probably more, and it would cost at least a few $1 trillion. It would make the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan look like nothing, and this kind of war would be a situation that could trigger the collapse of the U.S., because China is allied with Iran already, and they have bought into the U.S. economy tremendously over the past few decades. And if they see United States taking military action against their ally, they will immediately change sides and go to the ally that they have and take action against the U.S. And they're more likely to withdraw from the stock exchange, which would trigger a depression, and they would turn around and launch lots of war. There could be a lot of cyber warfare in this kind of situation, and you could have a lot more hacking into government agencies and hacking into all kinds of documents and the telecommunications, and the Iranians would wage a lot of different fronts, and it would not be a situation that could be easily controlled. And so if a country like Israel attacks Iran, it could be the end. That is a situation where the preemptive doctrine just doesn't apply. And if the United States attacks Iran, Russia will declare war on the United States. And if the United States occupies Iran, it will bankrupt the country. And if it bankrupts the country, the U.S. will not be able to afford basic expenditures and basic services or even government expenditures. And if that happens along with the Chinese pulling out, it could be the end of the United States. So this is a situation that we cannot get involved in. And Iran has a very powerful army, and launching a war against Iran would become a situation you lose all control. And the basic thing here is, when the Russians invaded Afghanistan, they basically bankrupted themselves occupying that country, and their economy wasn't strong enough to pay the costs of it, and they lost control over their country and broke up. And if the United States was at war with Iran, the country would be so divided over it that you would end up having states that would want to secede, and a lot might, and then it would be a civil war situation, and it would be very difficult to unite the country after that if they had been bankrupted by occupying this country. So the preemptive doctrine just can't apply to that country, and military is not the solution. The U.S. needs to keep working on getting Ahmadinejad overthrown, support the protesters, support the movements. He's losing a lot of favor with his people in his government, and everybody around that country is really getting sick and tired of him, and he's just a horrible leader for their country. And Ahmadinejad wants a war. He wants those people to go to war with Israel so badly, but he's a weak scumbag, and he hides behind the camera bragging about all this stuff, and he wants Israel to attack so he can have a reason for war. And he's trying so hard to get Israel to throw the first punch. And it's pretty obvious when we see the situation where he's constantly gloating about the nuclear site. He's constantly gloating about the Holocaust and wanting to see Israel wiped off the map. And he's so eager to go to war with them because he's such an empty loser of a leader. He's trying so hard to be some kind of big history figure. And in Iran, he's going to go down as one of the worst forms of leadership. And Ahmadinejad's quite a zero. For a college professor president, he's quite a zero. And he has nothing to offer the country. And he goes around bragging about stuff. And he wants to jail journalists. And he's really a drag for the whole culture in that country. And all the people there want to change. And so in time they will get it. But this is a situation like the Cold War where we couldn't strike Russia. And Iran has these capabilities. You attack Iran so that they can't get nukes, and the Russians will gladly supply them with every piece of Cold War weaponry that they have lying around. And they will gladly take action against the United States, and this is a situation where they have to de-escalate it. They cannot let this country go to war against another country, and Israel would be wiped off the map in a war against Iran, and it would kill a lot of Israeli citizens, and it would be a very dangerous situation, and it would create an extremely unstable situation in the Middle East. And if the Iranian government's taken out, then that country could go to civil war, and then that would become a huge quagmire that would blow over into neighboring regions. So Iran is not a situation where the doctrine plays in. You're going to have to wait this out, give more sanctions to Iran. If they have that nuclear site, they need to go straight to the other leaders that are losing favor with Ahmadinejad and say, look, we'll take off the sanctions if you acknowledge Israel's right to exist and you get rid of Ahmadinejad. And the more they work with them, the more they can open the door. But Iran is pushing a Cold War kind of mentality, and they are pushing us back into that Cold War style of life, and it's just not a good approach to be taking. And this is the 21st century, and we have the rise of China, and they all are very tied with Iran, and the Chinese government and the Russian government, a lot of the European nations, and a lot of places around the world have ties with that country. If the United States were to attack Iran, it would be World War III. And that's one situation. You cannot touch that country with a 10-foot pole because somebody will take action against you. And the whole world community would immediately look the other way at Israel if they even touch that country. So basically, Iran is not a situation that Israel would be in any position to engage. Now, if Iran is acting threatening and they try to invade Israel, then they can fight back and have national defense that can push them out. But if Iran is bragging about a site, constantly trying to escalate the conflict, they can't throw the first punch. Because if they throw the first punch, Ahmadinejad's going to turn around and say, look what Israel did to you. Let's go attack them. And that's where Ahmadinejad wants an attack. Because he so badly wants to be a wartime leader. And he's such an empty loser. And he's done absolutely nothing for the country. He's just, he's a kook. And he's a mentally deranged person. And he really shouldn't be in the office. But he rigged the election. And they need to support the protesters. And hopefully he will be overthrown in the rebellion. Because there's a lot of very progressive-minded and very educated Iranians who really don't like this man. And they think he's just a monster. And he's trying to push a culture of warfare. And he wants to see his people at war with Israel so he can live out his worthless fantasies. And he's living in a different world. And he doesn't believe in the same God as everybody else worships. He's just a kook. And when he shoots his mouth off about the Holocaust, he badly wants Iran to go to war with Israel, and he really